He would sit right there. Put that there for her, but the other one, I'm not sure, didn't seem to want it. I can run out too.
I'm gonna sit right.
Yeah, you're gonna sit there.
Wait.
Don't go, just don't go.
Oh, okay.
The legs freak out.
Okay.
Don't go near the glass.
Okay. I don't want to take your spotlight.
Oh, I don't sure. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Peacedale Museum of Art and Culture. I'm Lisa Fiore, President of the Board of Trustees for South County's oldest museum. And this year we're celebrating our 133rd year. We strive to keep history alive, and in particular, local history. Karen Ellsworth, fellow trustee, curates our popular museum speaker series as well as our terrific newsletter. This fall, Karen has concentrated on South County, and tonight we feature one of Rhode Island's cherished islands, Jamestown. Our own Louise Vieira Weaver, another talented trustee, has dedicated countless hours of her time to the museum. Louise often greets visitors and works hand in hand with our wonderful Vice President and Education Director, Mary Cockcroft Brown. Louise has an interesting life, and the origin of this life starts in Jamestown. So let's give a warm welcome to Louise Vieira.
Well, thank you, everybody, for coming out on such a cold evening. And I think we'll have a little fun. I'll have fun sharing my life with you and what we had to do on Jamestown. And I got a few little bullet points here that I wanted to make sure that I hit. I rode the ferry. Instead of taking a school bus, I took a boat to school every day. And it was just something that we never thought about. It was part of life. We even call the downtown area down the ferry. Down the ferry, doesn't that really New England? So actually, there was a gentleman named Bob Sutton in 2014. He wanted to preserve these memories of the people that had done that. So he gathered together a number of people, many of them aunts, cousins, friends. I'm not a star in it, but if you look towards the very end, I'm a bit actor, and I'm checking in people for a reunion that we had for all the people that went to the Carr School, which was the original elementary school. And back when I was there in Jamestown, that was grades 1 through 2, 1 through 2, 3, 1 through 3. The 4th grade was in the Grange Hall because the baby boomers were arriving. And then 5, 6, 7, and 8 were in the place what is now the Jamestown Library. Are you all familiar with Jamestown somewhat? Okay, the library was the middle school at that point in time. And where that lovely playground was the playground for the school. And we had little league games and so forth. And in the wintertime, they would flood things so that we could go ice skating. And my family were fuel oil distributors, and their garage was on that street, which is now the Jamestown Arts Center. So whenever I go to the Arts Center, I think I'm going to see my father roll out from underneath the truck on a dolly. So anyway, so what I'm going to do is, I'm not an historian, I'm a living historian, but I'm a storyteller. And when my father passed away, that's okay. I'm scared to death of these technical things, so.
The square. White square, in the middle.
Okay. Thank you, Julie, for helping. Where was I? Oh, when my father passed away, someone stopped by to give their condolences and said the last storyteller of Jamestown has passed away. So I think maybe I've taken over his spot, or at least I'll try. So the film preview, what we'll cover here, and I'm not going to be stopping it every few minutes. I thought afterwards, if you have some questions, you can ask them, but please stop me all the way along if you have any questions, because I might think of something that I might have forgotten to say that you might spark an idea. So it's going to give a history of the island. It's going to give some pictures of the ferry boats. The ferries, actually they were in service from 1896 to 1969, carrying high school students back and forth. And, you know, so there'll be pictures of all the different boats. The boats that I had were the ones from the 50s. One was a rather nondescript, the Wildwood. Another one was the Governor Car, which was a beauty. It had a promenade deck around it where you could sit, and that was my favorite. Then there was another one called the Hamilton, which was basically a car ferry, and it had a passenger compartment. I won't say unheated, maybe meagerly heated, but it's what you didn't really want to see sitting in the dock when you had to make that, the trip to Jamestown, because it was cold. Okay, and it'll have a lot of pictures of the island. I could tell you a little more about the island, but you know, we're not really here to do that. We're really here to talk about the ferries. So I guess my history started the day I was born, March 7th, 1947. And my mother went into labor at 2 o'clock in the morning. And rather than call out the ferry crew and all that hullabaloo, she was a very quiet, didn't want to rock the boat person, so they drove around through Providence to get to the Newport Hospital. I made it, but I could have been born in Portsmouth, so. Anyway, and also I wanted to give you a little backstory of the town before the bridge. I mentioned the schools already, and we didn't have any supermarkets. I don't even think there was anything big on this side, maybe A&P or whatever, but we had 3 little small markets, and that's where we shopped. I guess now you'd call it a bodega, or I'm not sure, but, and the population was only about 2,500 people, and we all lived in what's now called the village. It was town. There were some scattered families up north and some scattered families at Beavertail, and, but mostly everyone lived in the middle of town. North of the creek was out of town. Now, if you know Jamestown, it's double the size and population-wise, and it's really grown. We did have a summer group that came in for a couple of months, and that did double the size, but for the other 9 months or 10 months, it was just us. It was also fun with the America's Cup, because back in the day, it was just people who were interested in the ocean who were interested in the America's Cup. There were no sails with logos on them or anything like that, so when we could drive, we'd pack in the car and go down to Fort Wetherill and watch the boats come in. Try and do that now, and you know, you'd never be able to. Another thing before the bridge, there wasn't a whole lot to do, but folk festivals came through town, and at that point in time, the ferry lanes were very, very long, and townies would go downtown to watch the ferry lanes because there were interesting people in the ferry lanes. We'd go and get an ice cream cone and sit and do that. And one of my friends was a waitress in probably the only diner in town. And somebody would come in really rushed and said, you know, do I have time for a hot dog? You know, and she said, well, how far back are you in line? He said, oh, out by that other hotel, the Bay Voyage. Fine, you got a couple of hours. You won't, you have at least 3 boats before you get to Newport. So anyway, that was always fun. And let's see, am I missing anything else that I wanted to talk to you about? Does anybody have any questions at this point in time? Yes? How long was the boat ride? It was 20 minutes, to my recollection. Some people will say 25, sometimes 30. Maybe they just put the steam on, but for me it was 20 minutes. And it was a good ride. You'll see in the film, you listen to some things. I just will say that one of the fun things you will hear about that I thought about is that on the new boats, I had started talking about the boat and the ones in the ones I liked. I guess it was in the early 60s we bought the Chesapeake Bay ferries, which now one is a restaurant in Portland, Maine. I haven't been there, but one of you in the audience maybe could fill us in on that. But I haven't been to it, but when we bought those, they were bigger, but they were sterile. And, but, you know, they were fun. But they did have modern conveniences like a cigarette machine back. I didn't smoke in high school, and it also had a jukebox. So if you could feed the money in, the boat left at 7:45 in the morning. The girls would get on, feed the jukebox, and we'd all dance together, all the girls. And it was really fun, but you know, it's like, oh my God, they didn't keep it that long, but on a Friday evening, we put on a nice little show for all the sailors going home for the weekend. So anyway, I think we can show the film now. Oh, I had one other thing. A typical day, and the ferry left at basically, well, it did. It left at 7:45 in the morning. It was a 20-minute ride, and the film talks about that. We'd get off the ferry, and then we'd walk up to Thames Street beyond the not the Smithsonian, the Seamen's Institute. And there would be buses, city buses, waiting for us. So we'd get on the city bus, and then we'd go out to the Ocean Drive where the new high school was. And we were there by 8:25. So it wasn't that big a deal. Some people now spend hours on buses, stopping every 2 seconds. And, you know, so it would arrive at 8:25. Class would start at 8:45. And it was an hour travel. We took the 3 o'clock boat home, and it was a 10-minute walk from the dock to my house, because in Jamestown, nobody lives a half a mile from the water. So it was a 10-minute walk, and if I wasn't home in 10 minutes, especially on date nights, the last boat was 11:30. And if I didn't get home by midnight, then I was in trouble. But my parents trusted me. They left the nightlight on. You know, they weren't afraid of any big, crazy call, except for the night I missed the boat, but we'll talk about that later. So it was a 10-minute walk, an automatic curfew, and I think it was a pretty much of a fun time. So I will let my friend Julie get us going, because like I said, my technical skills are lacking, but I think that you'll enjoy this, and then we can, if you have any other questions, I can share some other stories with you. Okay, do we need any lights off or anything, or can you see it fine?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Come sit down.
Have some fun.
our community was too small to have their own high school. So then I needed a ride. But not in a school bus and not in a car. We took the ferry.
For thousands of years, Native Americans have allowed Should we pause it for a second? Something happened to the audio.
Yes, sure.
Early European settlers purchased the island from the Narragansetts in 16. The audio that not going to the.
We have an audio problem, so it's being fixed so that you can hear it nice and loud.
Is working great early. I don't know what happened. Sorry, guys. I'm not getting no audio on my side because it's coming through the computer, so it was working pretty well.
Well,
It's coming through my camera.
Such a nice audience. You know, something good about
I know. I don't know. I've shown this a couple of times. It must be his, whatever he's trying to do. Oh, the YouTube thing.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Yes.
Who owned the ferries and who purchased the ferries?
I believe it was part of the
Say the
state.
question first.
Okay.
Say the question first. And just, who owned the ferries?
Yeah, so they hear.
Just so they hear you.
So everybody
Just-
hears.
Oh, I'm
Oh.
sorry.
Yeah, just,
Well,
no, you say it.
It's run by the authority for the bridges and.
Yes, yes.
No, wait a minute. You repeat the question.
Oh,
You know what you're
okay.
talking about.
Oh, right, yes, yes. Okay.
Do you know that first picture that we see, do you know, is that a real picture or is is that just a picture of people getting off the ferry?
No, that's actually people, the group is from the 50s,
It is?
high school from the 50s. Everything is authentic.
Recognize some of those people?
Yes, yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, you'll see some people. The first one on is my aunt, and she was kind of the unofficial town historian. You'll see her as a source in every book written on the island.
What was her name?
Mary Raglan.
Okay.
And
What was the name again, please? What was
Mary
the name?
Raglan,
Mary Raglan?
Raglan?
Mary Vieira,
School with Jimmy Raglan.
excuse me?
Went to school with Jimmy Raglan.
Oh, okay,
I'm 10 years before you.
okay. Who are you?
I'm Cammy Collett's sister.
Candy Collett, oh my God. Julian Collett's daughter.
I'm still around, I'm the older sister.
Yeah, you were a few years older than me.
Yeah.
I'm Louise Vieira. Yeah.
I know what your name is, and Vieira was a well-known name on the island. But I
Yes.
don't know which Vieira family were you were.
Well, we had the oil company.
Yes, okay.
My father was Alfred.
Oh, Alfred, okay. No, he was a good man. And we bought coal from him on the
Yes.
coal furnace. And then we changed to a gas, not gas, oil burner.
Okay.
And so we bought our oil from him.
We actually supplied the ferries. And one of the men who worked for my father had to take the big tank truck up to Providence every morning and fill it up to get the boats ready for the first trip out.
Yeah.
And I don't know when the first trip out was, but all I know is a huge truck rolled by my bedroom window every morning. But, oh, I'm so glad that you could come. That's great. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. Is that all on YouTube? All of okay. Okay.
Or he can adjust
All
it
right.
later. You know, once
Okay.
once it posts.
I grew up in this town, in fact, in this very house. My grandfather had it built in 1912. And 5 generations have lived in it since then. This is a wonderful small community. Growing up here was wonderful. You could go anywhere you wanted to go. You could walk, you could ride your bike, and you didn't have to worry. Everybody looked out for everybody else's kids. When I was little, my mother would send me out the door to school, walk to school because it was only a few minutes away. And she would make my lunch, but I didn't take it with me. I came home for lunch. There was no lunch program at school, and then we go back to school for the afternoon classes. This is the way it went from kindergarten through 8th grade. Once it was time to go to high school, though, things changed. Our community was too small to have their own high school, so then I needed a ride. But not in a school bus and not in a car. We took the ferry.
For thousands of years, Native Americans paddled dugout canoes across Narragansett Bay to Conanicut Island. Early European settlers purchased the island from the Narragansetts in 1656, and for the next 285 years, all access to the island was by boat. In 1896, 4 teenagers started taking the ferry boat Beavertail to high school in Newport, 2½ miles across the East Passage of Narragansett Bay. This began a routine that lasted for 73 years. For the students that experienced this daily journey, it was truly a moment in time.
Nowadays, when most people think of Jamestown, Rhode Island, they think of it as a summer community. As one who grew up here, ferry boats played a large role in the island. And the only way for us to get to high school was by ferry boat.
I started school in kindergarten at the Carr School. We went through K through 4, and the Carr School was built in 1897. And then from there I did 5, 6, 7, and 8 at the Clock School. In 1955 or 56, they built the Lawn Avenue School. We had probably 20 or 30 kids to a class, and there was one school bus that was up at the north end that probably brought maybe 6 to 10 kids to school. The rest of us walked, and after you graduated from 8th grade, then you went to high school in Newport.
And I have many fond memories of riding the ferries to high school, and it was truly a unique experience.
That was a big experience.
Well, that was our life. Everything was done by the ferry.
It was. I remember going for my first interview. We had to be interviewed for each to be accepted to the school.
Right.
And you had your choice of 3 high schools. The girls had a choice of St. Catherine's, which was a Catholic girls' school. The boys could go either to De La Salle Academy, which was a Catholic school, or Rogers High School, which the boys and girls could attend.
Fortunately, I was always an early riser. So I got up and got myself ready, got my breakfast and got ready, because we had to leave the house here about 7:30 or so to catch the 8 o'clock boat. And when we got to Newport, we walked up to Rogers, which was way up there, and not too far up. We enjoyed the walk, though. It was good for us.
We kind of raised hell sometimes on the boat, you know, but not too much. The kids riding the ferry to high school had a lot of stories to tell. I mean, there were many things that went on the boat. The scariest thing that I can remember was it had to be the kids riding the boat from high school during the '38 hurricane coming back to Jamestown.
September 21st in mid-afternoon, this tropical terror struck, swept over outer Long Island, swept into thickly settled, highly developed New England, struck with winds roaring 100, 150, almost 200 miles an hour. Tidal waves 30 to 40 feet high struck a section unprepared.
Well, we didn't think so much of it. We knew it was a rough ride, and we knew that we saw the water, I believe, yeah, that was the one time we saw the water like come up on the deck. But, you know, the waves were rather high. But when we came into the slip, they docked it all right, and we got off of the ferry. And then I guess from there, that's when the ferry itself was, with all the roughness and everything with the weather, it just went up on the rocks. My brothers were here, and Ernest and Alfred, they were the ones that were running the place. And we just knew there was a very, very bad storm going on.
You know, after the 1938 hurricane, we had 2 ferry boats aground, and one ferry boat, this vessel, the Hamilton, hung up on the slip at the West Ferry. Of the 2 ferry boats aground, one, the old side wheeler, the Beaver Tail, which had been in service for 42 years, was a total loss. And the Governor Carr, which went aground, it took them until December 7th, 1938 to refloat her.
I went to high school the year after the 1938 hurricane. I left Rogers in 1943 to join the Army.
Well, it was shortly after Germany declared war on the United States, either hours or days later, that we were in class, and Superintendent Johnson came in our class and told us we better get out of Newport and on the ferry boat get home, because the Germans were coming and bomb the United States. So There was about 7 or 8 of us, but only I can remember the 3 of us. Bud Clark was one of them. He was from Jamestown, and Clayton Chellis and myself. We ran from Rogers High School on Broadway down to the ferry boat on Government Landing. And we were pooped because it's a 1.5 mile, 2 mile run. And we didn't stop for anything, practically running the pedestrians over. And we were terrified. And we got on the ferry boat, and then we headed to Jamestown. And we said, gee, this is a stupid thing to come on this ferry boat. We're sitting ducks here.
We started out for school out of Jamestown, headed across the bay. And all at once, the ferry boat swung out towards the entrance to the harbor. And out the entrance to the harbor we went. And we looked down ahead of us, and there's a big aircraft carrier coming in. And we headed down one side of it, and we got alongside of it as the USS Randolph. Apparently the captain wanted to come close as he could, because we went down one side, swung around the stern, and come back up the other side, and headed to school in Newport. And that's about that.
In 1945, we were going to Rogers High School up on Bellevue Avenue in Newport. We have to take the ferry. And we would knit all the way over there doing socks and sending them overseas to soldiers. During World War II, Fort Getty was the main prison camp for the Germans. And they were sent over to Newport for either rehab or learning different things in the United States. And they would load up the boat, and there would be mostly all these trucks with the prisoners. And the last truck on was a prisoner that used to send my friend Edie little notes, and he would tear them out of the newspaper, or if in a magazine, and he'd see something that interested him, he'd put a little note on it and throw it out the end of the truck to little Edie. And one time he asked her if he could meet her over at the gate, but that was no chance of that.
Why wouldn't she meet him at the gate?
Oh, because she was too young, and her father was in charge. He checked and made sure where she was all the time.
Bud Clark, Clayton Chellis, and I were playing cards on the boat, as we did every morning when we went to school, and every evening coming back. And either Bud or Clayton suggested we join the Navy. And we got on a short line bus, never went to school, went to Providence, joined the Navy. Then I went home and told my father what I did, and I have to get these papers signed because I was only 17. Well, instead of going to school like we were supposed to, we joined the Navy.
Going to high school in either very late September, early October 1945, we turned towards the torpedo station docks and parked on the end of where the concrete building is. There was a destroyer. The USS Aaron Ward had been hit by 7 separate kamikaze planes just off Okinawa. And it was in one terrible shape. And all the kids on the boat come out on the deck. And it was so quiet, it was unbelievable. Usually when you got a bunch of kids, it's all yelling, noises of all types, but it wasn't that day. It was quite setback to realize what had happened.
Well, I went to De La Salle Academy in Newport. Jamestown kids went to high school in Newport back in those days. And I went from September 46 to June 1950, which really was a golden age as far as sports were concerned. World War II had just ended. We had won. Tremendous feeling throughout the country, patriotic feeling. And sports was extremely important, it seemed to everybody, even those who had no athletic ability were playing. So I was there in high school, and I was fortunate enough to play 3 sports. I played football, basketball, and baseball, and ran into a problem playing basketball in particular. The last ferry leaving Newport in the winter left at 9:30. Of course, basketball games got over after that. So any Jamestowner who played sports in Newport had a problem. Where were we going to sleep that night was the first one. And so the first night, I slept in the jail in Newport. I went down, knocked on the door, they put me in a cell. But at any rate, the next day, went throughout the school. Pete Drury slept in the jail last night. Well, the mothers of my teammates got word. And they said, that is never going to happen again. So from that point on, I slept at the house of one of my teammates. Those mothers weren't going to let me sleep in a jail again.
I've been out of jail for 67 years. Absolute clean record. As a freshman, I couldn't make a varsity team, so I was a cheerleader at this all-boys school. And we'd get back after 9:30. So I'd go to the jail, knock on the door, and be hoping that there weren't any riots or mass arrests that night. They'd have a vacancy. Never was turned away. So I went into the jail and had a great night's sleep. The next day, I was always awake. They let me out, and the governor car was waiting, and I went back to Jamestown.
After away games, we'd come back, and we'd hope that the ferry was still running. If it wasn't, we would just go into the waiting room, and there were benches that were there, and we'd lie down and sleep on the benches. Occasionally, a police officer would come in and he would check around to see if there's anything going on down at the ferry landing. And if he see us there, and there happened to be room in the jail, they would invite us to be residents of the jail for the night.
I sat for my engineer's license, and then I worked for 16 years for the ferry boats as a fireman and engineer. I shoveled at least a ton of coal every round trip to Newport. I shoveled a lot of coal getting the kids to school.
Well, I started going to Rogers on the ferry boat in 1952, and it was nice going over on a ferry boat, and a few of us played guitars, Tommy Sherman, me, Harrison Murphy, and John Flynn. And we used to all sit around, all the people would sit around us, and we'd play the guitars, and everybody would be singing and jumping around. And then after that, we'd just put them in moneycombs over Newport. Yeah, and on the way home, we'd do the same thing. We'd play on the way over. I don't think anybody ever did their homework, except the smart ones, and the guitar players weren't.
When I was 11, my father gave me a 37 Ford Coupe. There was nothing much to do here in Jamestown back in those days. I could even get away with driving it around a little bit when I first got it. And Petey Manchester and I decided we'd start taking this car apart and learn how it worked. When I got into high school, I decided I wanted to do some custom work on this car, and it'd be part of my class project. And so Petey Manchester and I think Roddy Morgan, who lived up the street, another one of my good friends, we pushed it out of the yard one day, pushed it down Walcott Avenue to the ferry. I had gone down to the ferry the day before and asked the deckhands if it would be possible for me to put this on the boat and to get it to Newport. And they said, yeah, they put me on last, it'd be no problem. So we got it down there, went on, we took it over, pushed it off the ferry boat, and we got it to Rogers High School, which is on Broadway back then.
Back then we wore white blazers, probably about 85% of us. It wasn't a uniform or anything, it was just the style back then. And when we first, in Jamestown, when we first were gonna get on the boat, the whistle blew. And you either tried to get on the ferry before the whistle blew or after the whistle blew, because the black soot would come down and get all over your white blazer. I can always remember that.
When I would get dressed in the morning, I'd have to make sure that I was appropriate for how my mom wanted me to look, and also I had to have, weather depending on the weather, you had to have your boots on and of course, your coat and your hat and all your mittens and everything. But going to high school, that wasn't the best look. So we made sure that we changed our look when we got on the ferry boat by rolling up the skirts and taking off the boots. I don't think we felt the cold in those days. Young people don't feel the cold. They just want to look good.
Well, I remember at the Jamestown school, we were not allowed to wear any makeup, nothing. So when we went to high school and we were riding the ferries, in the morning, the first thing the girls would do when they got on the ferry was head to the ladies' room. And there, out came the lipstick, the mascara, the eyeshadow, the blush, and the makeup. And those girls, probably me too, would transform from being what our mothers saw when we left the house into these beautiful high school girls.
One of my memories of the mornings on the ferry was perhaps not having thought ahead enough to get pantyhose the night before. And there was a little corner store, Pitcher's Variety Store, and they had everything from ice cream to pantyhose. So you could run in there just before the ferry left and pick up a new pair, and then we would go into the ladies' room and put them on. So there were some last-minute adjustments that could be made in our appearance, and we might look quite a bit different than when we left home.
On the way home on the ferry boat, they had a jukebox, and the jukebox was 3 songs for 25 cents. So what all the kids would do is they would put quarters in all the way over and play songs all the way and dance all the way home. A lot of the kids. Now, hardly any of the boys would dance, so it was the girls dancing with the girls, which was kind of fun. So we all became very good dancers because every day for 20 minutes we had dancing lessons.
Everybody had their own, like a designated area where they went to. The 6 of us that stood over there in that corner, we stood there for the whole 4 years. And we had a good group. We used to discuss what we did the night before and what we're going to do that day. And we swapped sometimes homework, because a lot of us had homeroom.
I rode the ferries to school in Newport for 4 years, but I was a little younger than most of the Jamestown kids. I went from 5th grade to 8th grade to St. Michael's School, and with my best friend Nancy. And we rode every day together, sat in the same place, and we always sort of thought that, you know, some of the high school girls were probably looking out for us or keeping the, you know, guys away from us, because we never got bothered or bullied or anything or teased too much. And we started to realize that there was this nice lady who sat across from us who knit every morning. And after a couple of years, we thought, she's always sitting there too. I wonder if maybe one of our parents, you know, said, hey, while you're going to work on the ferry, could you just keep an eye on these 2 girls? So we moved one year, and she moved with us. So we had a little chaperone, but she really kept to herself, and we just did our thing.
Every Thanksgiving, Rogers, which was Class A, and De La Salle, which was Class C, always played a Thanksgiving Day game. Thanksgiving Day games were the best. I can remember going in 1957 over to see my brother, who also played at De La Salle, play Rogers. And it was like all the families would get together and get over on the 10 o'clock ferry boat or the 9:30 boat. And it was like the whole boat was filled with people. It was family orientated, and all to go up to watch the game up at Freebody Park. And finally to play in the game as a senior, junior, senior, and finally beat Rogers, which was awesome. And then we partied and then come back and have our turkey dinner. And just, it was a fabulous, fabulous time.
When I went to a prom, I got all dressed up and went on the ferry boat. And my parents never met my dates because I met them on the other side. And I'm trying to think now, did we get dressed up in our prom dresses and just go upstairs in the ferry boat? I guess that's what we did, all dressed up.
Although I didn't think much about the weather, some days it really did affect us. During the winter months, it was freezing cold. The bay would be covered with ice. It really was a sight to see. But the captain and crew always got us to school safely. To me, the worst days were the rainy days. We would have to walk from the ferry landing up to Rogers High School, and by the time we got there, we were soaked. We sat in class in our damp clothes. The Newporters were always dry.
During bad weather, There was a taxi cab driver, Mr. Flowers or Floige, and he was parked right in front of Monacone's little drugstore. And we knew every time it snowed or a little bit of snow or rain, he'd be there. Back then it was 50 cents, no matter where you went. And we'd all get in his cab, and maybe 8, 9, as many as we could fit in. Back then, of course, we all smoked cigarettes. And so we'd all smoke a cigarette, pass it around, and by the time we'd go out by Ocean Drive. By the time we got to school, the cab was full of smoke, cigarette smoke, and you'd open up the doors of the cab, and poof, out came the cigarette smoke, and the smell was all over us, and Sister was there at the door waiting for us. I can't remember which sister it was, Romana or one of them, and we'd go up to the door to go into school, and she'd go, poof, cigarette smoke.
One time that I can recall vividly is Wednesday, April 19th, 1967. We had what was called a dry northeaster here that day. The ferry left here at 7:45 in the morning, and I remember going the usual route and going over here and boarding the ferry in the North Slip, and we were already being tossed about. And when we got about halfway across, the ferry took a couple of huge waves and came over the bow, and we took on quite a bit of water. We developed this sudden list to the starboard. Two of my high school buddies and I, we ran down the back stairwell, and what we saw was an awesome sight. Some of the cars had floated. The life preserver box, which was under the stairway, floated and was out in the middle of the deck behind some cars. And the water, a huge amount of water was running out the aft end by the gates. And by that time, we had stopped dead in the water. Everything was we just stayed there for what must have been about 15 minutes. And then we finally got underway again at slow speed, and we made it into Market Square, and we did make it to school that morning.
No 2 days were alike on the ferry. Oftentimes, the ferry would make a speedy trip across the bay. We'd know then that there was probably an ambulance down below where the cars would be parked, heading to Newport Hospital, someone in need of attention. Occasionally there'd be a mother in labor waiting to deliver her child, and that ride was very quick.
In this one particular day, there was a dog that was on the boat, and he jumped off the side of the ferry and he started swimming, and we all were watching him, just afraid that this dog wasn't going to make it to land. We could see him going under, and he was just losing a lot of his energy. So one of the boys jumped off the ferry, dove in, jumped off the ferry, and swam to shore and helped this dog. There was all kinds of interesting things that happened on the ferry, but that's just one of the stories.
When we went to Newport, that was like the big city. So we got a window into the rest of the world. And Newport was pretty busy that time. They had the summer colony, the Atlantic Fleet Newport. Eisenhower had his summer White House there.
There was also the Newport Jazz Festival and the Newport Folk Festival.
So if you were a kid on that ferry boat, chances are you might get to meet some of these famous people and talk to them. It was pretty special.
My mother had a variety store down there in the wharf. It was called Doty's Variety and TV. Before that, it was called Hayward's. But every morning, she would bring us both down and put us in a bassinet outside the store. And one day, while we were out there in the bassinet, I was about 6 months old, my mother happened to see that Eleanor Roosevelt's car was out front, waiting to go on the ferry boat. And she had taken me up and walked me over to the car, and Eleanor Roosevelt actually held me. And my mother got her autograph on a piece of paper, and I still have the autograph.
I was a student at St. Catherine's Academy in 1959. Early that summer, President Eisenhower was staying in Newport and was on the Jamestown ferry to visit our island. The nuns had given us a lecture on proper behavior and reminded us that we were representing St. Catherine's. As the ferry was docking in Jamestown, all of the high school students came down the stairs and were kept at a respectable distance by security. I remember looking down at the president's red, hatless, bald head and thinking, now that sunburn must hurt. But we were all very well behaved, and I think we made St. Catherine's proud. Jean Matson, 1959.
And in the Sunset League in Newport, they had these black teams coming through who were extremely good. In fact, many of them we saw over there later played in the major leagues. Satch Paige was one of them. In fact, actually I saw Satch Paige after he had pitched in the major leagues, after Jackie Robinson broke the line. In 1950, Satch came through with a black barnstorming team to play an all-star game in Newport. But coming home that night, Satch, with his big Cadillac, came home on the same ferry we came home on. And he came upstairs in the governor car and talked to us about baseball. Very, very accommodating, very personal individual. We also asked Satch what compare Joe DiMaggio and Ted Williams. They were the two, at that time, they were the two big stars in Major League Baseball. And Satch said if you threw a fastball on the outside to Joe DiMaggio, he would hit home run to the opposite field. If you threw a fastball to Ted Williams, he'd pull a ball and hit a home run. So he never answered the question, but he certainly implied Williams was the better of the two hitters.
It was the summer of 1964, and it was during the folk festival, and a bunch of my friends from URI had come over to spend the day, and we were taking the ferry to Newport. And it was a really exciting time in Jamestown because there was a lot of activity, and the cars would be lined up back as far as the Bay Voyage, and a lot of people were in town that were new to us, and being a small town, that was a lot of excitement back in those days. So my friends and I were on the ferry, and we were just cruising around, pretty much people watching, and there was a cigarette machine and a man standing, and I think he was maybe had one hand on it and leaning against it and looking perplexed or baffled or frustrated or maybe all of that. And my friend, Mary Danilian, recognized him immediately. She knew it was Johnny Cash. He was going to be playing at the folk festival, and he had come up to get a pack of cigarettes. Well, he didn't have the right change, so he needed quarters, and Mary immediately produced 2 quarters, and he gave her his 50-cent piece.
I remember one time we were at the ferry landing in Jamestown, and we were in one of the shops there having a bite to eat, and a fella came in and ordered food himself, and somebody said, "You know who that is over there?" I looked over and I said, this was the time of the folk festival. The story is we went over and it was Harry Belafonte.
I went to school from 1963 to 1968, attending Rogers High School. My job during the Jazz and Folk Festival was to stand out on Connecticut's Avenue to be sure people didn't bypass. And this particular day, a yellow Corvette came through. And as I approached and started talking, he slowly got out of the car, and it was pretty much like, and he kept going and going and going, and then I realized it was Jim Brown.
In 1967, I started my freshman year at Thompson Junior High School in Newport, and it was the first opportunity to ride the ferries. And it was a poignant time because we could see the bridge being built and knew that changes were coming. And there were many mixed feelings about that. My father worked for the ferry, and we knew that things would be changing in a big way for our family, but also for me as an individual. Switching every day from going to school on the ferry boat to taking buses over the bridge was a big adjustment, and many wonderful things were lost for us.
As the time went on and the bridge progressed, we knew that there were big changes coming, and we would have to take the bus to school.
Riding the ferry was almost a family experience because in Jamestown, everybody knew each other, and all of the deckhands were so kind, and they treated us all as part of their family.
We grew up during a great time. Population very small. We all knew one another, all got along, and we got along on the ferry boat too.
Looking back now, I feel privileged to have been given the responsibility to get to school on my own and to be expected to take that responsibility. I think it was an important life lesson, and it wasn't learned too young.
In July of 2014, Jim Pimentel organized a reunion here at the Memorial Pavilion of all those who had attended both the Carr and the Clark schools in Jamestown. Over 200 people came, many from other parts of the country. They spent a beautiful afternoon here at Fort Getty, chatting with old friends, telling old stories, and remembering the good old days. They reestablished the common bonds that growing up on a small island had developed, and they relived the days of riding to high school.
We took the ferry!
We'll wait a few minutes. You can stop it if you want. Or let it go, whatever. Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments? Yes.
Yeah.
Camille.
There were a lot of things about living in a small town like that that were different than what you would usually come across. For instance, when I was a kid, the telephone company was privately owned. So was the water company. And Jamestown, as new as it was compared to other parts of the state, had its own, oh dear, go blank all the time. So we had sewers in town, not on the outskirts. So just downtown, Narragansett Avenue and all the streets off of it, and perhaps up towards Wetherell, because I think they may have put that in because of the Army being there.
On Walcott, we still don't have.
You don't have it on
No,
Walcott?
we don't have city sewer.
Oh, I didn't know that. But it was all privately owned. And when I would go to high school, my mother was an active member of the ambulance corps, which started private, not private, it started as a part of the Red Cross. Mm-hmm. And after World War II, it converted, and the town bought the ambulances that they had, and they changed their uniform and had nice dark blue uniforms. And the ladies would, most of the ladies, but some men, they would walk in the parades and represent them. But the thing about the telephone company is that when I came home from school, if my mother wasn't home, all I had to do was pick up the receiver, wait for the operator to come on the line, and I'd say, "Hi, it's Naomi, where's my mother?" She's over at South County Hospital. She should be back about half an hour.
That's really great. I heard this story too from a friend of mine, and I heard it years later.
Yeah.
But the operators, we didn't have dial phones. It was like, hi Marge, can you give me Jane or whatever? And I had a boyfriend in Newport who called the house, and she must have recognized the young male voice and knew where it was going. And she said, if you're looking for Louise, she's on her way to the 7:30 boat. So it was, I mean, my telephone. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's like, hi Mary, you know, can you get me Arthur? You know, it was just different.
Yeah.
We didn't get dial telephones until I was in high school, which, you know, was in the 60s.
My phone number was 401.
Mine was 544.
When I went to California for a while, I would have to dial up the O for operator, 0 for operator, and then I would say, I'm calling Rowland, and it's a small town, privately owned company. And so then I would have to, she'd say, well, what number do you want? I said, I want 401. She said, no, I don't want the area code. I want your phone number. I said, well, it happens to be the same thing as the area code.
We also had party lines.
Yes.
76JWM, and you know, it's like, oh, Mrs. So-and-so's been on for an hour, and you click in, this is an emergency, you know. It was fun. And you know, I did have a couple of things that I just wanted to, you know, talk to you about. Some stories of my own. And my aunt had a great one. I think they've covered mostly everything that I have happened, but my aunt was in high school in the 40s, and her birthday was on Valentine's Day. And while they were in school, this terrible blizzard blew up, so that they had to stay at the Viking Hotel overnight, all the Jamestown students. Well, the Viking had planned a big gala event. They had a big band, and they had, you know, everything was planned. So they celebrated my aunt's birthday, and all the students had a wonderful party. So that never happened to me, but, you know, it was a wonderful time, and I'm glad that you were here to, you know, share this with me. And if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And yes?
How many students used to take the ferry?
Okay, how many students did we have? I would say we had about 30 in each class in the 8th grade, so probably 200, close to 200.
Each day?
Yes. Yep. Could have been 150, you know, but judging by the elementary grades, we had 2 of each, and it was 30, so 4 grades, you know. Yes?
Did you know many of the people in the film?
I know all of the people in the film. 2 of my aunts, my cousin, many friends. I know everybody. I know their back stories, their front stories, and that's why I sit here with a smile on my face, because it truly was a change coming. And I left the island to go to URI in 1965, but I'd still go back because my family was there. And the early 70s was a very depressing time because the ferry was no longer the activity. The little shops were closing, everything was in disrepair, and it was a very sad time. But it was a time of change because some people moved onto the island and saw, wow, this place could be something. And now it's doubled in size, and You know, there are houses all around the island, and some of them I wouldn't even call a house. I'd probably call it a mansion. You look at it from a circle line tour around the island, it's quite amazing. But I still have family, I still have friends, I still have roots. Even though I've been in South Kingstown for 60 years, I still keep touch with the island, which people do on the town that they're born in. So, anything else? Yes? No? Scratching your head. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.